I'll have something to say about the senator from Tasmania. Don't you like to ask a question about the government? Oh, the opposition. Please, we know her game. Anyway, there are two things you need to know about this budget before I get into anything more complicated. Which of two numbers will you remember? $5 available as a tax cut in 15 months, or $1 trillion debt that we're going to rack up this year. This year, in this country, $1 trillion. In terms of the politics of what you have just seen, yes, it's something extra for them to say going into an election. But I tell you what, most people, I believe, when confronted with, will you remember $5 or $1 trillion, they're going to remember $1 trillion, because $5, it ain't going to change anyone's life. All right, the 5 things you need to know about this budget, and I've got to be honest, in the 15 years I've done these budgets, this one is the easiest to decipher, the easiest to read, because it is like an essay written the night before it's due. There was no plan for this budget, hence why there's nothing big and serious in it. There's just a splashy announcement to get a headline, so everyone moves on to the next day, which is, when's the election going to be? When's the election going to be? This was more like a speech to the National Press Club than it was a statement of where the economy is going to be going and what they're going to be doing in the next few years. But as always, my tradition is to tell you the 5 things that you need to know about this budget. Let's get going now. Will you sell your vote for $5? Because that's the price this government thinks is what your vote is worth. Now, they believe that the too little too late tax cuts that were around last year, $14 for people on $40,000, and so it was $12 for people on $40,000. Now they're promising you an extra $5 a week, but guess what? This $5 a week doesn't kick in July 1, so vote for us in April or May, and then you'll get this in July. No. You have to wait an entire 15 months before $5. That is how little they think of the political debate in this country. That is how easy they think that people can be bought. I disagree. As the Treasurer said in his speech, and even the bloke who is trying to sell you this lemon of a used car knows it ain't going to make it out of the showroom as a good idea.
These additional tax cuts are modest, but they will make a difference. The average earner will have an extra $536 in their pocket each year when they're fully implemented.
Now again, devil is always in the detail. They want the headline to be surprise tax cut in budget. So people that are sort of half paying attention, maybe the only time they'll see a newspaper is at the servo tomorrow, maybe they'll half hear something on FM radio tomorrow. And sure, that will be part of the coverage. But again, the devil is in the detail. The federal election happens before July the 1st. The next financial year starts July the 1st. Generally speaking, when there are decisions that are the centrepiece of a federal budget, those decisions are due on July the 1st of that year. No. This one kicks in July the 1st next year. And then there's something else maybe 12 months after that. Let's be really serious here. But this is extraordinary. The low-grade salesmanship of a bloke who is not a doctor of economics, he's a doctor of spin. Remember, that was his speciality, was how did Paul Keating sell his economic policies? Well, I'll tell you what, while Paul Keating will no doubt come out and say greatest thing ever, because remember he said that about Bill Shorten. And then when Bill Shorten lost, he turned around and said, why would anyone vote for the dumb ideas of Bill Shorten? I'm sure he comes out and says greatest idea, great government. But compare introducing the GST, floating the dollar, deregulating the banks to this garbage. This is the dregs of the great minds that have run our country. And they honestly think that for $5 a week in a year's time, you'll forget 12 interest rate rises, tens of thousands of dollars extra that you have had to pay off your mortgage. That you will forget that this government increased the tax on petrol to 50 cents in 1 litre. That you will forget that if you buy something like a bottle of Bundy rum, 63% of that is tax. That you will somehow magically forget that 3 and a bit million people in this country do not know where their food is coming from by the end of this week. $5. What an insult. What an insult. and to watch the Canberra class just all together, because that's the team they like and that's the team that'll tuck them into bed, fair dinkum. In the real world, $5 doesn't change anyone's life, let alone those people who are just... I mean, there's 3 million people that are this close to homelessness. 3 million. But you'll be distracted. You'll vote for the very people who are going to offer you $5 in 1 year. It is outrageous. And by the way, I love how the little spin is working on this. When my friend and colleague Andrew Clennell fronted the Treasurer with a $5 note to kind of drive home the point of how ridiculous all of this is. Listen to how Jim Chalmers tries to say, well, we deserve credit for last year's budget as well. And if you put last year together with this year, that's lots of money. Remember, $12 a week. What, we're now talking about a grand total of $17 a week for people, $40,000, fair income. Have a listen to this bloke.
They are modest. They're worth about that much a week.
Yeah, in combination with the tax cuts that we're already delivering, the average tax cut's about $50 a week.
Yeah, but let's talk about these ones. I mean, you don't get a pineapple at this time. You're giving people a cup of coffee a week, aren't you?
Well, this is about topping up the tax cuts which are flowing already. What we've tried to do here with this $50 a week in 3 tax cuts
$5 a week this time.
Well, cumulatively $50 a week.
Too little, too late. Too little, too late. Now, again, just a little news for all those people that are packing up their laptops after sitting there and being very obedient people, doing what the Treasury officials and the Treasurer says, covering this budget before they go off to the bars of the ACT. A poll was done in July of last year that showed more than 70% of Australians could not name a single thing that made their lives financially better under this government. They didn't remember too little too late last year. They will not remember $5 in a year's time. They'll remember $1 trillion, because that number is a shame. It is a disgrace. And I'll get to that in further detail. But if we want to combine the upsides of this government with too little too late last year and 4/5 of bugger all this time, you should remember that if you go back a couple of budgets, right back to one of the first that was delivered by Grim Jim Chalmers, he took what was called the low to middle income tax offset off the table. This was a COVID-era payment that I believe should have continued until this day, and in my view, if Peter Dutton wants a nice little winner, this should go for the next couple of years.